Welcome, everyone. On behalf of BioIT World's Global Web Symposia Series and our sponsor, Content Analyst Company, I'd like to welcome you to Death of the Keyword, the future of content search in health informatics. My name is Elizabeth Lamb, and I'm the host for today's event. At this time, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. First is John Falahi, Chief Strategy Officer for the Content Analyst Company, and next is Melissa Chapman, Principal of the Riverhead Group. So, John, welcome. The presenter ball is yours.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and thank you, everyone, for spending the next hour with us. And hopefully we can give you a little education about some new approaches in the next generation way of finding information and insight. And with that, maybe, Melissa, I'll let you give a little of your background, and then I'll give mine, and we'll jump into the agenda.
Good afternoon. Thank you, John. I'm Melissa Chapman. I've been working with content analysts for some time now, looking at how we apply analytics in the health information technology world. I spent about 14 years in the Department of Health and Human Services, including FDA, and I wrapped up my career there as the Chief Information Officer of the department and have spent the last 11 years supporting both federal agencies, pharmaceutical and biotech companies, and a couple of payers. Again, looking at how health information technology, and especially analytics and informatics, can improve the processes all of those organizations apply, and in general, improve healthcare delivery and payment.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. And so my background, I've been in the information access business for, well over 2 decades. For about a decade, I was the head of product management at a company called Fast Search and Transfer that was acquired in 2008 by Microsoft. We were the key suppliers of search technology for a lot of pharmaceutical, life science companies, but also online shopping sites like Best Buy and Dell and IBM.com and newspapers and our friends in the intelligence community. I worked at Microsoft for 3 years in their long-term strategic planning group, and then went out to find a company that could solve the next problem that people were facing in search, which is how can we get the system to start to understand the words and terms in the system that were fed into the system faster than people could predefine relationships like synonyms and dictionary lists and all the other things that people have to do to make search reasonable on all the different systems, whether they're internal or external. So I've been here for 4 years working with a technology that has been out in the market for quite a while, been in the intelligence community and legal markets where mission critical and key research is critical to make sure that nothing is missed. But what we want to kind of talk about is how the consumerization of the way people interact with technology and computers specifically has changed pretty radically, and then how older approaches are really costing quite a bit, how we can improve the relevancy, find things and show you a demo of one approach that could improve that interaction. Melissa, you have any comments on the agenda before I move on?
No, that sounds good.
All right. So 5-6 years ago, all of a sudden, the market started to see the computer system, or the way we kind of interact with the world, start to evolve. Prior to that, we all started getting very comfortable with Google and Bing and the other search engines and going to shopping sites, typing in a word or two, seeing a list of things that we thought were relevant, and then kept going. The problem is that those sites were showing us what they want to show us or what they determined was relevant. On Google and Bing, up until a few years ago, their issue was trying to use link cardinality. What were the most popular things other things were pointing to? So new things sometimes didn't make the hit list or were buried way down unless you added more and more words that you knew would get you to that specific topic. The systems have gotten smarter. There's new technology. There's underneath the cover, so to speak. And for a lot of companies, it's pretty expensive. It's memory intensive and compute intensive. But it starts to do some really interesting things. Why don't everyone raise their hand if they've ever talked to their phone? Let's see. I think we've got nearly everybody raising their hand because they're all pretty comfortable, now asking, via when they're driving or just picking up the phone and saying a whole sentence or more than a few words that they typed in, and it's basically doing a search experience. The same thing when we look at, listening to music. We did a whole underneath the covers review to build a whole set of information and relationships between different styles of music so that when you pick one in Pandora, it helps suggest what else is relevant or you might find of interest. So now we're using more than a few words and a few relationships. We're actually letting the system do the work just like a human does. We use our 5 senses and time to position everything in our head so that we can recall it. So if I say the word coffee, everyone's probably thinking something related to it that we would all understand. But if the words were if we asked each of you to speak the word, someone might say French press, someone might say Starbucks. If you live in New England, you might say Dunkin' Donuts, or you might not, depending on what you like, and so on. But we probably all know the terms that they use because that word we've started to build an understanding. The same thing now the systems are starting to do. For most of us, though, we probably think that this is what's going on, which is there's someone from the NSA inside the system listening to everything that we're saying to the system and recording it to make sure that if it is inappropriate, they're coming to track us down. All I can tell you is the software that you're going to see in the demo, they do have access to, so you need to be slightly careful what you say. Let's look at a specific problem that a lot of us face. When all of a sudden someone asks us a question, whether it's an email or personally, we usually ask it to the person that we think will give us the best answer, or I'll explain it to them in a way that they will understand. So if I take this sentence up at the top of this slide, this question, what happens is underneath the covers, if you type that into a search engine, the search engine will throw out most of the words and start to put in all these symbols and concatenations and put some other things in there, like it said newest, so it'll say, oh, let's weight this on whatever's the newest articles. And that might not even be the right appropriate way to do it, but they're taking their best stab at trying to understand what you typed in. And if we go look at what happens, like on one of my favorite sites, which does a great job on a lot of things, PubMed, if I entered that sentence in, that question at the top, it couldn't even filter out to give me, a match. There was too many quotes or no items found. Now, if we went back and just picked off a few of the words like pharmacological treatment, obesity, it might start giving us, but we probably have to do multiple queries to start to find or hone in on documents that are appropriate to me. So, with that, maybe, Melissa, you can give us a little more of a tweak on how does this affect the way people deal with it in this market?
Thanks, John. And I just want to mention, I think most of us have, through our education, through our work experience, become very smart about how to search by keyword, very smart about the kinds of results we get back. And we've learned to parse through all of that to maximize our research. But that's a crutch that we shouldn't have to continue to lean on with the emerging machine learning technologies that are available. And even more importantly, in terms of the number of drugs on the market, the emerging therapeutics, the types of things that most healthcare researchers or pharma or biotech companies have to worry about are complex enough that a keyword just isn't going to do the trick, or even multiple keywords. And that's not to say that keywords aren't important, but there's a role for keywords, and we really need to think about how can we enhance and accelerate our research experience, our answers to urgent questions, whether they're from the FDA, from a provider, from a patient. How can we improve that process and improve the quality of what we get back, instead of really not being sure if the information being returned to us through our tools is simply because of one word. And I think all of us know, too, that the quality of the information we can find in these huge repository of information really drives the risk in our own companies. If you're a privately held pharma or biotech, your risk is a big deal to you every single day. So we need to capitalize on the new technologies available to enhance our ability to mitigate risk and continue to deliver quality products. And in the big picture, what we're talking about today through our demonstration of Cerebral is throughout the healthcare system continuum, there's a variety of research needs. If you're in discovery, you're really focused perhaps in gene therapy studies. You're looking at new tools for visualizing the vast amounts of data we're collecting about gene therapy and complex diseases and pathways. But again, it's not keyword driven per se. You want to see the universe of knowledge, but then be able to quickly hone in on your area of interest. Similarly, if it's regulatory intelligence or compliance, you're concerned about staying current, but you're most concerned about the nuances particular to your product, your company, your indication, your target disease. So there's this paradox in needing to understand all the knowledge that's available, but at the same time be able to effectively parse out of that what you care about most.
One of the things that we did about 18 months ago is start looking at what could we do from all the discussions we had with a lot of experts in different markets, that how do they try to solve a problem that's different than people that are just generally trying to find a quick answer or do a quick search, and the style and interaction that they work with. So there's a couple of things that we kind of discovered as we started looking at designing a solution that was more tailored to a subject matter expert or a domain expert. Doesn't mean that it can't be used by anybody else, but what are some of the things that are a little bit different? One is that a domain expert has a much larger volume of knowledge, and that they have a understanding that there's even more that they don't know. It's kind of like the surface of a balloon. If you have a small amount of knowledge, the surface of the balloon touching the unknown is not that large. And hence, being able to correlate or see relationships when all of a sudden you discover something new on one part of the surface, you can quickly relate it to many other things. The more and more information you have, and that grows or expands that balloon. So, two, that they constantly are looking across multiple sets of information in today's world, that it's internal content, paid content, free content out in the web, and now one other key area, social content, which kind of comes in multiple forms. So now we have to try to figure out how can we get across those different repositories of information that can have different dictionaries, synonym lists, taxonomies, and other ways of navigating the information, but really not a way to understand the voice of the author, meaning what was the words and terms used by that author and how are they related to the concepts that I'm trying to get across or trying to mine. And that can we make it intuitive and then focus on relevancy? Because here, a lot of search engines can do a phenomenal job matching the words, the keywords that you use, and get you a haystack back of results, as I like to call it. The question is, are there any needles in that haystack? Yes, Melissa?
I just wanted to add to that. I think John's done a good description of the use by subject matter experts, but lest anyone think we're just paying lip service to smart people. The real, for me, as someone who's used a lot of these tools, including Cerebral, the issue around being a subject matter expert is when you want to collaborate with other subject matter experts on a certain topic. I imagine in your own mind, you do what I do. You think about who's going to really understand the topic I'm looking for, my topic of interest, who's got not just the education, but the long-term experience in certain areas who will, quote, get it when I say this is what I need to research or understand or find. And that is what Cerebral tries to mirror back to you. I think of it as the tool that's going to get it when I say this is the larger topic I'm interested in. Now help me find out of the millions of documents out there, the small set of items I'm concerned about. And then I can use simpler tools, Boolean or keywords, to break it down to something very specific. But I very much think about it as that person I can go to who gets it, who knows what I'm trying to find.
So maybe I'll spend a second talking about the technology. We've kind of mentioned it once or twice through some of the things we've been talking about. But it's really what the world is starting to call machine learning, and there's multiple types, but the one we're focused in on, the one that we use in this around here and has been around for a while, is latent semantic indexing. So there's a lot of machine learning. People might hear predictive analytics, where it's taking lots of data and trying to look at trends on what to recommend or what else might be next, or here's what people have clicked on a lot about, or here's a topic that seems to be highly repeated. That's a little different than what latent semantic indexing tries to do. It tries to work like the human mind. It really is focused on taking the content and building from every word in every piece of content that's submitted to the engine a relationship. And it deals in hundreds of dimensions of every word, so it understands how that word is related to every other word in the document, how it's being used in any other document, how other words are highly positioned just like it. And so back to my example of coffee, so coffee cup and French press and Starbucks, they're all floating around that term coffee. So they're highly related. So they're not what normally would be synonyms, but highly relevant terms to one another that are critical that if you're looking something up, that you don't miss that relationship. So think of the technology today that's sitting there under the covers has the ability to be kind of like that smart assistant that can work at computer speeds, processing all the content and starting to build a real huge mental map of how all that information relates to one another. And so it really identifies relationships. It understands how things are, relevant to one another. And one of the other nice things and why it's been popular in the intelligence community and legal community is it's language agnostic. So you can do the same things in French or Japanese or Chinese as we can do in English. There's no worry because it builds all of, quote, its dictionaries or its understanding of the terms, as it gets the content in. So the more you feed it, the smarter it gets on every topic. So that's the technology underneath the covers. The product that we've built is Cerebral. And Cerebral is a SaaS offering or web-based solution. Kind of fits into this thing that Gartner's calling the new smart data discovery market, where it's a hybrid approach or a integrated approach of new ways of using machine learning, text analytics. We still do have search underneath the covers as part of the mix, but it can scale and it's easy to set up and run. So what we've done is brought a number of experts together and brought a number of key technologies together that made it so that that hard part of integration and balancing the right tools and leveraging them and making them all automatic are hidden behind the covers, and you just go off and do your job finding what's important to you. So maybe I think the best thing to do right now is to give a demo. And what I will do is, hopefully I don't offend anybody with what I've got on my desktop, so we'll try to see if we can get this going. So what I was going to do is say that one of the things that we talked about is if I was going to PubMed, they do a great job of how to do a search, identify the key concepts, enter the terms, keywords, and give you some good examples. That's one approach. So,
and when you know PubMed, you also know that underneath all of that is a lot of mapping to dictionaries. They've done a lot of work and really a great job in mapping all these terms that go together using a number of resources. And then every time our industry or HHS or FDA creates a new standard, a new mapping, they incorporate that as well. But as you know, again, it's very expensive and a lot of overhead. If we don't need to map terms, that's even better.
Yep. So here I'll log into Cerebral. It's password and user-specific ID sensitive. So here's something. So I might be working with Melissa on a project. She sent me a note where there's some, discussion around omega-3 fatty acids, and could I do some looking up about these topics. So, one thing we could do is just copy this information, and I can go into the PubMed, we're a licensee of the NLM information set, paste in all of that text. Yes, there are a list of words, but we're just using it to start off. And what we instantly get is a set of results that we give you a relevancy score, the information. But one of the first things we want to talk about is, what did the system understand from the query? So the query is up here at the top, and what we can find out is, when I hit the word terms, we give you a term cloud, but if you notice, it's not kind of your traditional term cloud. It's basically said, given the words that you gave me in your query, what are the most relevant terms in all of the Medline abstracts, this entire repository of about 24 million plus 25 million documents and abstracts that come up when you give that information set. So you can find a variety of things that are pointers to other documents, key terms, highly related concepts that you might not have thought of, that in a lot of other systems, they wouldn't even have those as synonyms or other lookups, that you would have to go mine these and find these in order to get the proper keywords to find the right documents. But this gives you a quick snapshot of how the system kind of understands that information. Melissa, do you have a point or two you want to make?
I was just going to say, I think it's important to know that, this was instantly generated. It's not a mapping. This is the tool's instantaneous way of saying, what the words you typed in, this is what the knowledge in this particular repository, Medline, presents back that is responsive to your query. And it's a little hard to get your head around that sometimes, that there's no dictionaries, no mapping, no synonyms. But it's really that latent semantic indexing methodology that's creating this view into the knowledge repository. And, John quickly went into the Medline repository. You can have multiple repositories. This just happens to be one of them. And the tool set essentially learns from all of those repositories.
Very good. And I'll jump back out. I just figured we'd get into how it works, and we kind of then scale back out. So when we get documents, we can kind of look through any of the documents, and you can see if some of them, we have all of the information, metadata that's been sent across. In this case, it was just the title, so we can go back to the source link from Medline. Hopefully it'll load in some reasonable time. You can see that we're talking away to PubMed, but doesn't want to go. Let's try a different one just for the fun of it and see if we get a quicker result. Nope. So my apologies, page was not found. Interesting. Well, we'll come back to that and try it with a different system. So one of the things that we can do is go through the documents and also start to understand who are the authors. So we can see there's a few authors that are really very popular. And you could click on the author and notice what happened. I'll unclick it. We have the first 1,000 most relevant documents to this query. The minute I click on the author, we're down to 7. So if we go into the documents, we're now into the 7 documents where W. Lindenberg is the author. So we can now go through and look at that set very quickly. You can drill in, by any one of the key pieces of information. I can unclick this, so we'll go back to all the documents there. And then, for example, pick in year of publication. We want to look at a specific year, like just this year. We're now down to 36 documents that are currently out there and talking about what's going on in the marketplace. We can then
and I want to mention that as John is showing how to view a collection that you've narrowed in on by author or other terms. This is where the tool takes advantage of the investment we've all made over the years in tagging documents, in following standardized dictionary terms, and adding metadata to content so that that investment is not lost, because we're not suggesting you don't ever want to use keywords again. We're suggesting that we can enhance the value of those keywords if you're first able to sift or filter or explore content by your idea first. Then you can explore by the metadata and tags and other things that have been added to enrich the content.
Yep, and if we think any one of these documents is really interesting, as Melissa said, one of the things we can do is use the whole set of information that we have. So behind the scenes, when we built this, we've built a smart index, as we call it. So we've taken whatever we've gotten for the title, the abstract, the body, other metadata, and used that to build an understanding of it. So if I now want to go look at PubMed Open Access with this one document and see what's available where we have access to the full documents, we just keep that in a separate workspace so we can kind of build the smarts quicker. And we have here a number of documents that, now we have the text, and notice the system will highlight what it thinks are important sentences within the body of the text that are highly related to the information. So it also gives you a way for very long documents, you can turn off the highlighting or turn it back on, to find what's going on. Also, if you want to try to understand what the system thinks about this document or how it understands it, you can do the same thing, and we get an instant term cloud of, if I use that document as a query against all the information, here are the highly related terms about this document, again, now in PubMed Open Access. So it gives you a way to quickly start to understand, how does the system understand this document against all the documents in this set? And if you noticed, it was that quick of a hop from one workspace to the other. And think of the workspaces, as Melissa said, as just information sets. So we have, Wikipedia for general information and the FDA guidances. So if we went in here and ran that same piece, you can see I did that earlier this morning just to test it. I have two tools. I can put it in here and edit it, or I could just tell it to rerun. So it'll rerun that piece, and we can see the results against the FDA guidances. You can
so let me add I just want to add something here, John, if I could. So John was showing using our same concept search around TBI, but looking in the FDA guidances. If you will, for just a minute, imagine that instead of dropping in this list of terms around TBI, maybe I use a letter. I've gotten an RFI from FDA, and I drop that into my repository of previous commitment responses or other documents I've submitted to FDA. So I could use these concepts across repositories to help me narrow things down. Or perhaps I drop a study description, a trial I'm planning, and I submit that against the FDA guidances as my query. I'm going to hit all the guidances that are relevant to the study that I've described. And we're finding that people using this in the industry and looking at how it applies to very current projects or problems are thinking of ways to use this that we haven't thought of. People are using it to possibly, nail down their responses to FDA, make sure they're saying the same thing the second time that they said the first time, which, of course, we all know we all do that very accurately. They're also using it to discover terms of use or vernacular when they acquire another company. Maybe they don't, in both companies, use the same terminology or the same project names. So they're exploring each other's content after an acquisition through tools that you see here.
So now I just went into, as Melissa was talking, just keeping a little bit of the interaction going. And so I took that same query that she gave me and ran it against our general news feed. So we have people out there who have heard of Acquired Media. Acquired Media is the leading aggregator of all digital information, news feeds and media feeds, and supplying it out to lots of other sources in real time, especially Wall Street. So we get all of the content feeds from them, and we can do the same thing here and look at, here's what the terms are against the news, but we can look at the documents. And this third one is really interesting, and we can see here's a whole article, on brain training, and some of the issues that Melissa was interested in. So I could sit there and say, boy, this is a really interesting article. I can look at and see, what subjects are covered, what publication, what organizations produced it, where it was published, lots of other information that's there about it. And I can use this article now to go back into PubMed, and it now is using this entire article as a query and looking at the abstracts, and now we're finding, again, a number of articles here that are highly related in PubMed with a little more information now because it's more focused on the military and disorders in the military. We're now seeing lots of articles pop up that are related in that. So it's a little different way of looking. Every once in a while I can click something that will not have a proper link and get you the information. So it's a very easy way to move from, as Melissa said, take one idea, follow a thread, find something interesting, and continue down and look at other repositories. But to show you something that's also that you can do, most of the, should back up, what we actually supply, harvest the information from the FDA site, work with Acquired Media for general news, our licensee through NLM for all the Medline abstracts and the open access. And Wikipedia, we've worked our licensee or meet their licensing requirements to reuse it. But here's my own workspace. So if I hit admin, if I have any rights, I only have rights to my one workspace. So all this says is, as Melissa said, I could actually upload, pick any file that I like. I could pick a small test file. If I hit start upload, it'll upload it. Then hit build, it'll build it. And now I have a workspace that has all the documents. And here you can see I've uploaded 275. And I can do all sorts of types of searches. And it happens to be a whole workspace on Gartner reports that I'm interested in over the last couple of months, and I was doing some work on cybersecurity. And here it found all the documents on that. So it's very easy to even build your own workspace and make it as interactive as any of the ones that are supplied. And we work with... Yep, go ahead, Melissa.
I want to add an example here. We have a group of people working with the tool today who provide support to an institute in NIH doing observational studies and epidemiology studies on a specific topic. So while the available workspaces are very interesting for them to look at, these are people who've been doing this kind of research for many, many years. So they have on their desktop and in their Jazz drives a ton of research they've saved offline that is their sort of core body of knowledge that they use to enhance their research. So that group has been able, as John just demonstrated, they just simply sat at their desk and uploaded that lifetime of research they've been keeping in a file folder on their computer or other shared drives. And now they're using that to enhance the research they were already doing through Medline and other tool sets. So it was a great example of something that they've been doing by hand for many years. Now it's automated for them.
To go back and show one more thing, we did a quick run, but you also have a lot of capabilities with the system that if you wanted to look by specific journals or contributors or any of the other metadata that has been passed along, or you want to make sure that there's specific text in the result set, in the documents, you can add that. So we can add other filters just like you would in a keyword system if you know that there's certain limitations or certain things that you want to do in the set. So
imagine. Sorry, John. I just wanted to add that. So imagine, this is a simple example of published files that have tags, but maybe in your organization, you would want to be able to take advantage of all the tags in your CTD submissions to the FDA. So those could become your metadata filters. So perhaps you want to, in your concept search, you drop in a big document about a manufacturing issue that FDA has alerted you of, and you want to look at all your CMC sections and then be able to filter that by drug name. That's something that you could easily do from your desk across multiple workspaces.
So one of the things I did is we looked at one document just to show that we can take a lot more. I just happened to take the first paragraph of a particular document that came up. And you can notice that it took that whole large body of text and did the same thing that we did with a handful of words. So you can go either way, and if you're interested in a particular term and how it's being used, you could enter the one word and get that result and look at the term cloud. So the tool gives you, one, an understanding of how the words and systems are being related to one another, the words in different documents. Two, it gives you a way to actually interact with the computer like we're talking about today, where people can talk to the system. You can now add more information, lift something from your email or other document, or if you're reading some document online on a website, just cut and paste that paragraph or a couple of paragraphs that you say, boy, this is the gist of what I'm really interested in. I wonder if there's anything in our internal repositories or anything out on the web and any of these other, in the news or other places, and get that information and quickly track it. So you can save all that information also and give that, back to other people in your work group. So I think with that, we'll go back to the slides, set up for people to interact with, and it makes it very useful because we actually supply a lot of content that people work in daily, so they don't have to go jump from system to system. And like we showed, it's easy to add your own personal content, and we work with other vendors that if you need to connect content to secure information within Documentum or other internal systems, we can get that and build a workspace very quickly off of that for you and automate the update of that workspace, so that information is always available here, and then you can decide who has access rights to it. So pretty straightforward approach. I don't know, Melissa, if you have any other summary comments, and then we can open up to Q&A.
No, I think that's great. I'm excited. Please ask us questions. I realize a couple of people may have submitted questions, and we're going to answer those, but please challenge us. I know we quickly went through a lot of information, but feel free to ask any questions about the assertions that we've made today. So I saw one question that I'd like to take, actually. It was, who or what types of roles do you think will find this tool most useful? And that's a really good question, because it goes back to that notion of this this tool is best used by subject matter experts. So in the people that I've talked to and interacted with looking at Cerebral, I have found that people who, especially in pharmacovigilance, regulatory intelligence and compliance, people who are in positions of either internally reviewing a lot of clinical studies or entire regulatory submissions, people on the health authority side who are responsible for reviewing a lot of information, collating information, they seem to find it most compelling. So it's really people who are at a somewhat senior project level or senior level in the company or the agency who are dealing with a lot of information and have to make critical decisions using that information, whether it's questioning the safety of a drug or a drug class, or trying to sift through clinical notes to understand what physicians are observing in a trial. It's that type of information where you have a lot of knowledge, and you want to maximize its use.
There's another question, just how does a typical implementation work? It's actually pretty straightforward. You can go to our website and actually sign up for a free 14-day trial. But the system is literally one where it comes with the 5 workspaces that I showed, the FDA guidances, general news, the full Medline abstract set, and then all the open access documents and Wikipedia. And then you can add as many of your own private workspaces. And we call them a workspace, but it's really a set of content that you've defined as something that you want to keep as separate, whether it's a separate folder in Documentum, it's only information from a particular group, or you only want certain people to access it. And that information is uploaded, as you saw, pretty quickly. But the system is a SaaS offering, so once we get unique email addresses and assign a password out, that person will have rights. Then you can decide, you set up a one person who would be a system admin for your group or just for that person, and they can handle, dealing with giving rights to internal workspaces. Does everybody have the right to add content to it, or do they only have the right to look at content? Or is it just personal? Is it just a workspace for myself to use versus a team workspace? So hopefully that answered that question.
And the old CIO in me wants to add to that answer just a little bit, that when it comes to typical implementation, it's sort of difficult. I have found that this is the most quickly implemented product I've seen in a very, very long time. But for people who have a more complex security model, or have incredibly large amounts of information maybe, or who have security models that are challenging to meet, like some of the agencies that John alluded to earlier, it can take a little longer, but this is truly not a high overhead implementation product. And as in the government and in pharma, I've encountered so much of that where it was very expensive just to get started. But this is much more straightforward than that, much more flexible, and really it's much more ready to use than most products of this class.
There's a question about separately subscription to Medline. So this is the Medline list from PubMed, so it's just the abstracts. We can find them for you, get you, if PubMed was up and running, to the links, then you would have to, still, if you wanted that particular article, you would have to, have a subscription with a particular publication. But the actual looking up, all the lookup, we have everything, up to date, within probably about a week or so of what it's been updated on the PubMed site. It's just a way to get to the more relevant content quickly with one search versus multiple searches on traditional systems like the way PubMed's set up. As we said, don't get us wrong, they do a great job on adding all the message information and a lot of the other stuff, and they've done a great taxonomy. Many people are used to, and they have suggestions when you type in a few words. But if you're really trying to grab a paragraph or two of content, or you're looking at an abstract that's really interesting and you want to use that as a search without trying to figure out what words to kind of chunk out of it, or which combination of words are the most appropriate, This approach gets you there and gets you there much faster, and we know from years of experience that the results are highly relevant all the time. Or it'll tell you that, we didn't find anything. Are there case studies? There's a number of documents out on our website if you're interested. So the information, if you go, as you see at contentanalyst.com, and you go to the website, there's a section on Cerebral. There's another section on the core engine CAT. That's the technology that we've been selling for over a decade to lots of different industries to give them the capability, other software vendors, a similar capability for their own product, but it doesn't use all of the tools that we build.
And for the person who asked the question about the case studies, once you take a look at that, please feel free. We won't bombard you with information, but if you want more, please contact us. I would be happy to talk to you specifically about what a rollout in a pharma biotech would look like. And John, there was also a question about, are we running out of the Amazon AWS or private cloud, et cetera?
Yeah, so great. Sometimes I forget to cover all the points, and that's a great point. So we are in the Amazon environment. We can set up for individuals very cost effectively. It's $7,500 per month for access up to 10 people per month, and you can go month to month or get discounts for a longer period of time, and that includes all the content we supply and all the information. You can, for a little bit more money, we can set up a completely private stack so that the only people that are in that set of information, you'll still have all the same information, will be your company or your employees or your team. And then can also work with you in Amazon and work in some of their private VPN environments so that you can have a completely secure setup in Amazon with our software in it, and then a VPN where the only people who would ever even see that information are people that are inside your own firewall, so to speak. So we have covered a lot of different options. Go ahead.
There was also a follow-up question about accessing the Medline abstracts and for people who need a full document. And John, correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, the way it works, if you as a company, an organization, an agency, a user, already have access to online content like the full documents in Medline or in other repositories, then you would that same access would extend to your Cerebral tool. It's just that we can't provide access that you don't already warrant because of copyright and access rules. So I hope that helps address that. But you can get the full document if you, as the user or a company, et cetera, have access, permission, or are licensed for that.
Correct. And one of the other companies that we work with, for example, is uploaded information from Documentum, and it has the URL to the original document. But if the person who clicks on that URL link does not have rights to that document because of the way their internal company has set it up, they won't see it either, right? All we're doing is passing it back to the location. If the user doesn't have the rights, then they can't see it. If you want, you can set it up so there is no source link or any other way to get out of the information. If you notice, we also have the ability to download the text of a document and in certain cases download the list of results so that you could then save that and then work with those offline. Those are only for certain workspaces. For example, for the full Medline, we're not allowed to do that, but for the open access, since they're a part of that public domain and willing to share, that capability is there. That capability is there also for news, because when you license Cerebral, that is a full license to all those sources, including New York Times and AP and about 250 specialty life science and biotech weeklies and monthlies.
So a lot of other functionality we didn't have time to touch on that I hope if you're interested in following up, we can share with you. one of the things that I really like about this too is, let's say that you like to go to a certain website, and 3 layers down into that website, there's a list of documents, and in those documents, there's another link to the real information you want to study. Cerebral can get to that. But that's something that it's not as if it's just accessing the first layer of content. It can be set up to get to any content that is a text narrative, basically, in a number of formats that John has time to list the entire list of formats that we can get to through Cerebral.
We have a number of ways to help you garner information so that can be harvested and worked on as long as it doesn't violate any rights. If it's out there on the web and it's used for your own internal use and you're not violating any of the rights, then there's a way we can help you get that information and then add it to a particular workspace. So we can help you with your internal content, helping you move the paid content that you have into the system as long as you're not violating the rights of that paid content, i.e. having any user who doesn't have the rights to it. I mean, you'll have to manage that. All the information out there on the web and social media. Again, one of the things about social media that's a frustrating problem in today's search world is that, unfortunately, the way people write in the social world versus professional writers is not the same. So grammar, misspellings, and the mashups of new words that lead bloggers are using, and what do they mean and what are they related to? Quite honestly, traditional systems can't keep up. That would mean that there's someone constantly updating the dictionaries and synonym lists and spelling lists, and it's just almost impossible in the social world. Machine learning is now the preeminent way to kind of solve that problem, and that's one of the core pieces of this solution. So hopefully we can help you out really doing that education for a while. Unless there are any more questions, I think we can wrap up, Elizabeth, and be happy to get questions at contentanalyst.com or info@contentanalyst.com and follow up with any of you offline would be, fine by us.
Thank you very much, John, and you too, Melissa. Excellent presentations. It's a technology that it's easy to get excited about. I hope to hear more about it in the future.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you all.
With that, I'd like to say thank you to our presenters. Most of all, I'd like to thank those of you who came and spent an hour of your time with us. We know you're very busy, and I hope that you were able to find some ideas and information that will make your challenges a bit easier to overcome. Thank you so much, and have a great day.